a spouse isn't going to fill that. And if you're looking for someone to make you happy, and if you're looking for someone to complete you, it will never work out.
Welcome to Thriving in the Wild. I'm Taylor Stern. I'm sharing what happens when you step into your vulnerability, face the hard things, celebrate your journey, and giving you your weekly reminder that no one has it all figured out. It's time to thrive. Let's go. We knew that relationships were something we wanted to cover often here on Thriving in the Wild, so we're incredibly grateful for the wonderful couple that is joining us to kick off this topic. Together, they shed light on how they're learning to thrive not only as a married couple, but also now as parents. She is Shawn Johnson East, an Olympic gold medalist, Dancing with the Stars champion, best-selling author, podcast host, and content creator. He is Andrew East, an engineer, a former NFL player, entrepreneur, podcast host, and content creator. Yeah, you can see they wear impressive and many professional hats, but I know the most important titles they have are wife and husband and mom and dad. That's exactly what we covered in this talk. Their views on singlehood, the lessons they learned while dating, the core of what makes their marriage work, and of course, what they're hoping to instill in their daughter, Drew. I hope this leaves you feeling empowered and to better believe in the person you already are. So I give it a 10 out of 10. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for joining me today. And again, as I've said, I would love to talk to each of you individually about all the wonderful things you've done. But today I wanted to talk about relationships and kind of through the different stages of life: single, married, and now parents. So single first, you guys can, choose who answers this first. Before you met each other, what were your biggest priorities in life? Back to your single self.
Whoa. I was consumed with working out, and that was and what I ate. That's all I cared about. Literally.
In a healthy way?
So boring.
Or what would you?
Yeah. In a way obsessive way. Coming off of like gymnastics and coming off of Dancing with the Stars, I was just in that teenage years and phase where I was way too obsessed with it, and I felt like obsessing over it was going to find me a spouse, which is so messed up. But
no, I think that's really relatable, especially for women.
Yes. And then I felt like the more I worked out and the more I worked on what I looked like, the greater chance I would have at finding a guy who'd be interested in me. And then you stop trying, and all of a sudden you find someone and you could care less. So yeah. I spent way too much time obsessing over that.
No, I think that's interesting. Where were you at, Andrew?
So while I was single, I was partially during college. I feel like I was mostly concerned with trying to pass my classes. College was a battle for me.
Yeah.
I was pretty focused on football, and I wanted to I had these dreams in my mind to go build wells in third world countries. So that's what I was kind of fixated on.
I love that.
A lot of my thought. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. But Shawn, and kind of going back to what you were saying, what's interesting is that being a single person, I think a lot of times people think, oh, if you work on the outside, it'll work on the inside. But I think that's almost opposite. What do you think?
100%. I think if you work on the inside, it fixes the outside and makes you feel more content because you learn that doesn't matter. But yeah, the more I worked on fixing my outside and fixing my appearance and changing it, I felt like it ruined the inside of me. I became more obsessed and more depressed and just aware, and that just consumed every ounce of my time.
Can I just weigh in here and say one of the coolest parts about seeing Shawn become a mom was seeing how she was just focused on herself less generally. We all are focused on ourselves, but I feel like maybe Shawn was, with her background, just worried about her image, and because she's had so many articles written about, hey, she gained weight or she lost weight and things like that. But when she became a mom, it was she didn't even have time to think about herself in that way. And I felt like you became so much healthier in that process.
Yeah. It's the first time I stopped trying to work on my physical appearance, and I just worked on becoming a mom. And again, everything just went away. I could have cared less, and I was just happy.
Did you notice that too when you guys got married? Only in the fact, probably both of you, because when you're single, the only person you have to be responsible for is yourself. And then it's like, oh, okay, there's another person. Now there's another person that I have to be completely responsible for.
In marriage?
Well, in marriage, did you feel like both of you kind of took that step where it was like, okay, yes, I was always thinking about what I was doing, but now I'm thinking about this other person, and it kind of changes that, takes it to the next level.
Yeah, I feel like we're fortunate in the sense that we don't feel responsible for each other necessarily. I do think that like as we've dated and then got engaged and married and then had a kid now, it is kind of different levels of thinking outside yourself. And like, I think shedding a degree of selfishness, you have to get rid of that. And so it's cool. Like, yes, marriage is like the first real tangible, I think, identity shift that you experience where it's like, oh, well, maybe it's not good for me to just, go out with my friends every single night because I need to spend time with my wife and cultivate that relationship. And then it's taken to a whole nother level of that consideration, I think, when you have a kid. So yeah, I think yes, to answer your question.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like what you said about identity shift. Shawn, when did you feel like you noticed your identity had shifted from the single mindset?
I would say when we started dating, probably like 6 months into dating, I started just feeling comfortable around him. It was a weird time of my life where I stopped working. I like took a hiatus from working for a year and just focused on dating, which is weird to say. But I knew when I met him that I really wanted to give it a shot because I really liked him. And I lived in Iowa and he lived in Nashville, Tennessee. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to put my effort into this and see if something works of it. But I remember around 6 months into dating, I felt like I could see myself marrying him and felt like my identity started to shift into not being like that single person, but I was his girlfriend with the intention of becoming his wife someday.
You're ready to throw down after 6 months?
She's like, let's go.
Yeah.
I love that. No, I really like that. Now, Andrew, going back to the single guy, what advice would you give yourself now, knowing, everything as a parent and a husband?
As a single guy?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I think the advice I would give is honestly the habits matter, I think, and like building good habits and being disciplined with those, I think can go a long way. As your identity shifts from being single to married and married to a parent, like you have to be, I think, disciplined, like to accomplish the work that you need to get done, to take care of your health the way you need to take care of it, to take care of your loved ones the way they need to be, taken care of. And so I think that I probably would have started building those good habits and like putting thought into what habits I wanted to build a little earlier. I was so focused on just like whatever, football and watching the latest movie as opposed to like, being disciplined and I guess shaping my lifestyle, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to do that though, especially like now, I feel like nowadays it's like sometimes I don't know what my priorities are. And I don't say that as like I'm losing my values, but it's like some days it does change, and especially through the seasons of 2020. Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting though. I mean, not to get philosophical, but like, I guess it's somewhat relatable to like traditional versus contemporary kind of like church styles where like people say, oh, the good part about traditional religion is like you have certain disciplines that like always bring you back as an anchor point that you can like, relate to whatever phase of life you're in. And I think yes, it is definitely difficult, but I would argue that it's worth it to like put thought into that because things always do change, but like, my football coach used to say, control what you can control. So like, I think having some domain over like what your life looks like, even though everything else is changing, is valuable.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say too, though, the first thing that I thought of when you asked that question of like, what would you say to yourself as like a single person? I feel like for both of us, and I feel like a lot of people go through that, when you're dating and when you're single, you try to find the identity that works for a spouse, if that makes sense. You're constantly changing yourself and you're constantly going on dates with people, and they ask you if you like rap music and you're like, oh yeah, sure.
Big absolutely. Future fan. Yeah.
Yeah. I like whatever you
Are you saying you don't actually like rap music after all these years?
Yeah. But I remember when Andrew and I first started dating, we had both come out of relationships where we changed ourselves so much and we got so tired of it that like the first thing we said to each other was, I'm going to be completely me. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I think as a single person, I would just like give the advice to myself, like stop trying to change and just be you, because you're going to end up being you. And if you don't start that way, it's not going to end well.
Yeah. My sister used to call me a chameleon. She'd be like, you're acting like a chameleon in this relationship. And sometimes you don't even notice it. You're like, because you're now telling yourself, yes, I like rap music, or yeah, of course I love going to skate parks on Saturday. You know, like these things that, like, you're like, no, I don't. But my question is, how do you get to that point? Like, how do you get there where you're like, okay, I'm done being this other person for, you know, a potential relationship that might not work out if I do this?
I wish there was a way that you could probably get there without having to experience it. But I think for me, I had to learn it the hard way. I was in a 4-year relationship where by the time we got to 4 years, I was just so tired of trying to act like someone that I wasn't. And it wasn't like this awareness that I had where I was like trying to put on a face, but instead of just supporting his passions, I had to act like they were truly mine. And I just got tired of that. And I started wanting to truly do what I enjoyed. And I think if you just have that realization earlier of, where is this going to take me 20 years down the road? Do you still want to be the person you're acting like right now? Then that works. But if not, you should probably change it.
That's like a great tip for all walks of life, like any dimension of life. Truly, I love that. Okay, now moving into marriage, which I know nothing about. So really coming at you guys for the insight here. But when you were little, did you imagine the people that you would end up with? Because like my sister and I will always ask each other, like, oh, who do you see me being with? And, you know, then describe that person and go down that. That might be more of a girl thing. I don't know, Andrew.
No, it was a middle school boy. It was Jessica Simpson, you know?
Yeah, Drew.
I'm kidding.
I never knew that. Okay.
Newlyweds really got you? I mean,
what's funny is mine was Nick Lachey.
You guys found each other's match.
Yeah.
Why Jessica Simpson?
I can't say I did, no, to be honest with you. No.
Okay, but Shawn, that is a girl thing. Yeah. Like, right? We do that.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, as a girl, you grow up, I mean, little girls are centered around stories of Prince Charming and what is he going to look like and what is he going to act like and where are you going to meet him and what is your lifestyle going to be like, and you picture your wedding and I pictured everything.
Yeah.
And when I first started dating Andrew, I remember my mom even laughing and being like, this is nothing like you've ever talked about or dated before.
What? In a bad way?
No.
What am I, some schmuck that you just picked up?
Hey, this homo you found.
Jeez, you really lowered the bar today.
No, like, it's just, I was so, girls become so blinded by what their like list is that you don't even give the opportunity to a guy that could truly be your Prince Charming. And I remember I went on a date with Andrew, like our first date in LA. And I was like, there's no way this is going to work. Like, no way. And he pursued me for another 9 months. And I was like, fine, I'll go on another date with you, whatever. I fell head over heels. And I was like, this is the greatest guy I've ever met in my life.
Taylor, so I dressed up in my nicest outfit that I had for this date. Obviously.
Explain the outfit. Detail it for us.
No. Because this is what it was. It was North Face shorts. They were like these sweet hiking shorts, but like super stretchy, kind of khaki.
A lot of pockets.
Like way above the knee or like appropriate?
No, like
No, like
long.
I've never been a shorts kind of guy.
Yeah.
That's not
Long
my
shorts.
no,
Okay.
With pockets.
So we're
I did
talking
not-
cargo pants?
not cargo
straps?
shorts.
Yeah?
They were. I know literally the outfit. I had a bandana on my wrist because that was like my accessory. And it was
Oh,
a blue short sleeve button down shirt with chacos.
Abercrombie.
and
It
this
was-
is in LA?
This is in LA.
It was
Yeah.
my nicest outfit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You were really yourself, and that's what we appreciate.
Yeah.
Appreciate about you.
Well, and I was living in LA for the time, and I'd been there for almost 2 years, where you're just around different types of people. And he comes dressed like this, which was adorable. And it was his 21st birthday. He's like, I've never drank before, but I would really like to drink now. And I was like, who are you? You're in Los Angeles.
I did not say I really wanted to.
I mean, you weren't
Like
opposed.
I'm gonna have a cocktail with you.
Yeah, and he downed like 20 shots and then didn't seem affected. And I don't know. I was just like, I don't know who this person is. And you would like pray before you took a shot. I was like,
No.
who are you?
Why are you? Oh my gosh, 20 shots.
I just have this image right now of like, I don't know why, but like I feel like you'd be wearing a poncho. You know those poncho jacket things?
Yes.
I had one of those. Yeah. It was
I
too
assume-
warm though
yeah.
to wear mine that night.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you didn't figure
Yeah.
that. But like, okay, so then how did it switch where you're like, all right, he's been pursuing me, but like, fine, I'll just give in.
Honestly, he had been texting and calling me for about 9 months after that first date. And I was cold shouldering him hard. And I was in that weird phase with the 4-year relationship where we were on and off, and I was just sick of it. And I was just like, okay. And he texted me Andrew texted me this long the cheesiest message I've ever read in my entire life. Like out of a movie. It was like, if football has taught me anything, it's how to persevere. Would you come accompany me to the CMA Fest here in Nashville? I'd be like all this, and went on. And I was like, this dude. And I was like, sure.
You're
And
like, CMA Fest sounds fun. Sure. Yeah.
I
let's do
actually,
that.
I love country music. I was like, yeah. And funny part of that story is he didn't have tickets. And I said yes. And he didn't think I would. And he was like, crap. But I flew out to Nashville just to be like, okay, let's just like give this a rest. We'll go on another date. And yeah, I fell head over heels. I was smitten.
That was a great style, Andrew. Just like, I'm going to throw this out there. I'm going to really go for it. And I like the sports analogies like, hey, here's my game time speech for you.
Exactly. That's what it was. It was great.
Yeah. It's like something out of like a Matthew McConaughey sports movie.
For real though.
Yeah.
Dang, I wish I could read it though, like Matthew McConaughey would have,
Yeah.
with that deep, just sensual voice.
What if you had just sent an audio message and said that would have been amazing?
Oh, I don't think that would.
I do not open audio messages. If you ever send an audio message to me, just count on me not listening.
Yeah.
It is always awkward. Like you're around someone else and you have to kind of like look at your phone and hear it, but to the point. But
Yeah.
all right, shifting a little bit. One thing that's very interesting about you guys is you have such a large audience that has followed your relationship thoroughly. You're always transparent. You're very vulnerable. How do you think that has specifically shaped your marriage?
Well, first thoughts I had it was interesting. I mean, Shawn, we started dating after her whole gymnastics career was over. And so she had been on Dancing with the Stars twice by the time we were dating, and like had done the whole like celebrity deal. Like she was in the limelight, you could say. And she was super nervous to like introduce me to that and all the criticisms and just emotional roller coaster that it was. And I don't know, it was just never like, I was playing football at Vandy and I just had other things to worry. Like football was my priority. It wasn't like getting famous. And I feel like I was in a good spot in life where I was prepared for whatever degree of fame dating Shawn brought, if that makes sense, where it was like, it wasn't gonna really sway me. But I mean, we got really starting with our engagement is when we started getting our relationship documented or documenting it ourselves. And so I don't know. I actually haven't really thought about the effect that it's had on our marriage. I think it's actually, if anything, forced us to have a lot of I think like check-ins that maybe would be easy to let slip by the wayside if we weren't in this position. Because it's always like, hey, this makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't want to do this, right?
Yeah.
Because it's on camera that it's going to be shared. And so I think my initial impression is that it's been good in that sense and encouraging us to have conversations that we might not otherwise have had.
I think we were really lucky because I had gone through it already by myself and then with other like guys that I had dated, and just kind of learned like how it can affect people and how not. And with us, I think just from day one, I voiced such a fear with him with bringing him into that world because I wanted him to know that our relationship was the priority over anything else. And having millions of people have an opinion over your relationship, no matter what, whether it's good or bad, is just hard. So I think from day one, because I voiced such that fear and hesitation with it, we just made it a priority to almost protect our relationship more than anything. So whether it's something we posted or talked about or shared, it was always talked about before it went like into the public's eye. And even now with like our podcast and our YouTube, we have strict rules within our marriage of everything has to be experienced and kind of figured out and lived before we actually share it with someone in order to protect our marriage.
Yeah.
So we've just been really like intentional with it, I think.
Intention is key.
Intention
is key. Yeah. Like setting those boundaries, I think, is very important, and making sure both parties are comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, well, I loved what Andrew said, Shawn, because it kind of relates to like what you were saying when you're like, okay, I moved here, I was putting the commitment. I think that's when you were really stepping into your most authentic self. Because it's like you're done with this LA scene.
Yeah.
You've had that life, and now you're like, this is who I really am. And I think that's really cool to hear that.
Yeah, I was at a point in my life where I was being offered all these different opportunities and kind of paths that I could go down, and none of it was making me happy. It was cool, and I thought it was awesome being able to go on shows and be a part of it, but I just felt like there was something missing. I didn't have that sense of community or friendship or relationship or like true raw and real thing before I had like the Hollywood side. And so I just got tired of it. And I said, you know what? It's not worth it if I don't have someone to share it with. So I'm going to like pause everything. It's worth giving it up. I will go to college. I'll get a job. Like I don't need this anymore. I would rather have something completely different with a spouse than have not a spouse and have this. And I just took that leap of faith, and I wanted him to see that I was serious about it and that I was willing to like give it up for him, not as the sacrifice, but as the intention of I meant business.
She was in it.
Yeah.
The challenge is when you look at, I don't want to say our peers, but like Hollywood marriages and how those pan out, like it's not a super encouraging picture in the sense that, you know, mental health issues or drug issues or substance abuse, divorce. And it's like, okay, how do we avoid being like that group? You know, I don't want to say we're a Hollywood marriage.
But you're definitely
YouTube,
in the spotlight. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's plenty of examples on the YouTube world of people who have done similar things to us and it hasn't ended well. And so it's kind of, we don't know how this is all going to end. Obviously, I think what we're trying to do to mitigate the risk of it ending poorly is just constantly evaluating, like, how are we doing? And is this in line with what our like core values are really, if that makes sense?
No, it completely does. And I think what I'm hearing is that it's like putting your relationship at the center of it and not sacrificing that for anything else is what makes it work. Or it seems like that.
Yeah, no, it truly is. And I feel like that we had a lot of conversations with like friends, and we had a lot of people ask us different questions when we were going through the NFL. And they're like, how can you just give up your career to like, you know, go around the country for him and vice versa? And it's just, it wasn't sacrifices that we felt bad about. It was just because at the heart of it was our marriage. And we are going to support each other no matter what. And we go through different phases of life. And it was just kind of like our marriage is going into a direction of a new adventure, and we're going to test it out and try it out. And if it doesn't work, we're going to do something different. But for us, it was always the marriage first. And then after that, the other stuff is just kind of extra.
Yeah, and Andrew, I can kind of relate to the NFL situation. Obviously, I did not play in the NFL, but traveling with the team, one of my favorite quotes is, happiness is only real when shared. It's from that movie Into the Wild. And I remember, you'd be on the road and you'd be going to these games, you're at Lambeau Field, like all these historical things in sports, and it feels awesome. But I remember one time I was like, this is great, but like, I'm calling my mom and telling my mom, which is awesome. Love my mom. She's awesome. Yeah. But it's like, you want to share life with somebody. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what I always felt in the NFL was like, this is great, but I'm missing out on Thanksgiving. I'm missing out on important events. And that was what I wanted out of my life.
Oh man, missing Thanksgiving for football was the worst. Congratulations on your first Thanksgiving in a while with family.
Thank you. Yes, we didn't make any Tiger King TikToks this time.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
Oh man,
Taylor's internet famous for her. Anyway,
internet famous.
No, and that's the thing is I think people mix up happiness with excitement because it's exciting.
I've never thought about that.
It's like very exciting to travel with the team, and it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, like this is going to be a cool story for somebody. But I do think that, yeah, like having a purpose to everything you're doing is a little more of a better way to happiness, if you will.
Yeah. And I think at the age that I was in at that time, it was like, okay, my purpose was maybe for other people at times. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Shawn? Because like, I'm sure that's how you felt at times.
Yeah, I feel like for a lot of my career in life, I was doing it for other people 100%. And it felt in the moment right. Yeah. I felt like I was doing what I was supposed to. I was following, down the journey I was supposed to be going on. But then you do that for enough, you do that long enough and you figure out that that's truly not your purpose. It's someone else's. And you're helping to fulfill someone else's purpose in life.
Yeah.
And you're helping to, fulfill someone else's success so they can go home and be with their family. And you're just kind of a cog in their wheel instead of actually doing something for you, your purpose, and your potential family. And I just got tired of that. And like you were saying, I was doing these red carpets and I was doing TV shows and I was calling my mom, and I was just like, I want someone here with me. I want someone to walk the carpets with me. I want someone to truly be able to experience this with me instead of it being a solo mission. And I just got tired of being that cog in the wheel and wanted my own thing.
Yeah, no, that's really true.
So to tie it into thriving in the wild, Taylor,
yes.
I think
thriving.
This goes back to the disciplines and habits that I was talking about. This goes back into how do you prepare for dating, if you will. I think at the end of the day, you have to have a purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that sounds super ambiguous and it's super hard to figure out what your purpose is. But I honestly believe that everybody has a purpose and can change the world in a way that nobody else can. And so I think being a chameleon in a relationship or, just going through life, stumbling upon the next Netflix series that comes out doesn't necessarily help you achieve that purpose, it doesn't help you get closer to understanding what your purpose is. It's like your talent, you have certain talents that no one else does. So how can we get you closer to realizing what those are? It's like, okay, well, you enjoy doing certain things, you're good at certain things, sit down and talk to your friends and your parents and mentors and whoever, and figure that out. And then I feel like, marriage is at its best. And I feel like we're fortunate in the sense that we help each other get closer to our purpose. So do
you think you have the same core values? Do your core values align? Maybe not exactly the same, but, knowing that family is at top, faith, all of these things that are very important to you. I think that might be part of it.
I think so. I think when we first started dating, we had so many drastic differences.
That's good. Yeah.
That made it almost intimidating for us to kind of pursue each other. But when we would sit down and have these like deep discussions, we aligned on all the big things. And even though our lives looked completely different, we both aligned in faith. We both aligned in family being the priority. We both wanted to get married someday and have kids. We aligned on those. So it made everything else not matter. And it made everything else just kind of, you know, a side story to what we were actually pursuing. And I think kind of what Andrew was saying is we watched a movie the other night where the like end scene was this couple had been dating for like 6 years and the guy had just announced he had no intention of like proposing or getting married or whatever. Buddy games, whatever. But it made me think that like
Don't watch that movie.
it was hysterical.
I
But
love
it made
Hallmark
me
movies.
like think, if you have like a vision of what you want your life to be like, whatever those core values are, if you're dating someone or if you're taking on an opportunity that doesn't progress you towards that goal, there's no reason to do it. And every once in a while, it's fun to kind of do these random things. But if for the most part, it's not leading you towards who you want to become and who you want to be, then I don't think you should waste your time doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And Andrew, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that there's a part of purpose that is intention, you know, because sometimes I feel like part of my purpose is mixed in with my values. And then it's checking in with what's my intention? What am I trying to do? Coming back to the podcast, it's like, I'm trying to help others see their potential. And in these different wilds of life, I mean, we're talking about different stages that are new wilds, but knowing your intention, I think it can evolve and grow with you, but checking in with yourself kind of gives you that purpose. Do you agree?
And I think people don't maybe reflect as much as they could or journal or whatever. Just the reflection portion, I think, is really, really like a key part in all this. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what's really great about what you guys do with the podcast and your YouTube videos is you do give yourself a chance to reflect. Kind of like look back on these big monumental moments in your life.
It can be good or bad. Sometimes we're doing like a podcast and we're like, oh, we really didn't talk about this. And we had different feelings on it. But yeah, we try to reflect a lot. And we try to like Andrew said, evaluate where we are and how we got there. And if we're headed in the right direction, if we need to change something or dump something or whatever it might be. But we try to reflect a lot on what we're doing so we stay intentional and we stay headed in a direction that we like.
I like that. And now your direction is you are Drew Hazel's parents.
Yes.
Who I just think she has the cutest character ever. I love the videos. I just die every time. She has so much personality.
She has a lot of personality. I don't know how a 1-year-old can have that much personality, but she is a spitfire and she is so much fun to be around.
Her facial expressions slay me. I'm just
yeah. Like the video you posted the other night where you're like facing the camera and she was sitting on the table and she like out of nowhere screamed. I was like, who are you? I don't know where she like learns it from either. But
it's so funny. Now, what's your favorite part of becoming parents and kind of this year progression that you've seen in yourself?
I would say the selflessness that we now have. You don't realize until you have a kid how selfish you are, even after marriage. But you have all these priorities and hobbies and things that mean a lot to you, or you think they do. And then all of a sudden you have a kid and you're like, why did I waste my time, you know, watching Netflix series and binge watching or whatever, doing all these things. It all of a sudden seems pointless and it immediately reprioritizes your entire life. And you just weed out all the stuff that doesn't matter. And it's really cool to see how she did that to us in an instant.
Yeah.
Yeah. The simple fact that you now have a human who's dependent on you forces you to spend a lot of time on that side of things. And that causes all the non-important aspects of your life to get pushed out. And so you actually have to think about like, oh, what do I not need to do anymore? So I think that's been like on a personal note, really great, but it's so fun to have a kid and to be with them every day. And then step back after, every month or so and be like, oh my gosh, she learned how to walk this month, or she's been making like crazy sounds, or like the daily progressive change is like so much of a joy.
Yeah. And what I love is that, now you have a daughter, Andrew. Did you ever think that you wanted to be a girl dad?
So
growing up in the football world?
Before Shawn was pregnant, I for sure wanted a boy. And then when she got pregnant, which like, I'm just so glad that we were able to have a kid. It was like, I didn't care at that point. And now it's like the best thing ever to be a girl dad. It's so much fun. And I can't wait like to see Drew, and the fact that Drew has Shawn as a role model of a mom is like, man, I'm just pumped,
I'm pumped to see it. I'm excited because, just when we were talking before, it was cool to see like little things that you were talking about and that were important to you, that because I'm super close to my dad. And I think that is such an important relationship for females and kind of navigating life.
What an awesome episode that was with you and your dad, by the way, Taylor.
Thank you so much. Johnny Boy is legit the dopest human being.
Called her dad.
I love that.
He is such a Johnny Boy. It hurts. Like he has a car microphone in his microphone in his car that goes through the whole car, and he'll get on it because he's a pilot, and he'll start doing like pilot talk on the car.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's pretty embarrassing.
We got a 489 heading eastbound. We are all clear for takeoff. That's right.
Yeah. He'll be like, thank you guys for joy. I can't even do it, but it's very good. I'll send you a video of it.
Yes.
But yeah, so Drew is very lucky to have both of you guys as role models. How do you set the boundaries with her? Because, she has more followers than legitimately most human beings. How do you set those boundaries and sharing your parenting journey and giving, hope and optimism to other people, but being careful with what you do share?
It's really hard. And when we first got pregnant, it was the very first conversation we had, which was like, how are we going to do this? Our entire life is posted on the internet, and how are we going to do it with her? And I think, there's a lot of people who do it completely different, and I think everyone does it different. But for us, it's honestly a picture by picture and video by video conversation. Every single kind of moment, I think, has a different purpose and different experience to it, and reason and intention. And we just kind of have these conversations every day of like, should we post that? Why are we posting it? Why are we wanting to? And trying to be intentional with it. She's going to end up on social media. It's just the generation we live in. So we might as well introduce it to her in a way that's meaningful and teach her from day one what's important, what's not, and why would you share something and why wouldn't you? And just trying to make sure that we're leading by example. But it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying.
Well, I've never thought about that. You're right, because the next generation, like, that is what they know now. It's not because I've always heard these parents who are like, oh, I'm not gonna, let them be on social until they're 14. And for me, it was always kind of like the parents were like, I'm not gonna let them play these sports, exercise. And I was like, well, like, then you're just like opening the door. It's like the outlet. Like, they're gonna want to touch the outlet the more you tell them not to.
Yes.
So it's like, if you can kind of not train, but maybe like just be that guiding force, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's a complicated issue. I think our strategy with parenting though is not trying to shield or shelter in any way. It's more of, hey, you got to be prepared for situations. And so I think that's a similar approach we're taking with social media. And again, I don't know if we're doing it perfect. We're being thoughtful about it, and we have, I think, good intentions that we constantly evaluate, but our thought and hope is that we prepare, as you were saying,
Yeah. What would you tell her about handling like the hard things of social media? Like getting down on certain people's comments or different things? 'Cause I think that that's something that people deal with at young age now, especially if they're on social media, but even as you get older.
That's the part that scares me, is because you're going to go through an age where they can't process it. And I think that's just going to go with an understanding and an education of you, like, the people around you that you're with every single day are telling you the truth, and people on social media have opinions, and I don't know, that's the part that freaks me out.
I think it connects back to the conversation about Shawn's fame. It's like there's people's opinions that matter, whether it's a good or bad opinion, and there's people's opinions that don't matter, whether it's good or bad. And so it's like your friends, your close friends, and your family, and the people who you know and trust. That's who you should listen to, like both for critiques and for celebration, And then, I not to say ignore everyone else's, but definitely it goes in a different bucket of like priority.
I think you also, outside of social media, just teach kids from a very young age that people are going to be mean, and people are going to have ugly things to say, and people are going, like, there's just that in the world. And that you teach them how to deal with it and how to handle it. And then I think there's also amazing features on social media now where you can cancel things out, and we'll just do that for years until she's able to have the mental capacity and ability to read her own comments and say, you know what, I'm sorry you feel that way, but I'm not going to believe it.
Yeah. I think one thing that really changed my perspective on that, and it's something I'm still working on, but it's like the way people treat you is just a projection of themselves.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it is. It's timeless. Every time I'm like, okay, this person said this. Let's do some digging here.
Yeah.
Okay, like, they're lonely or they feel this way. And, it's just pain and hurt that comes out in ugly ways. But
we'll
I
give
love
you some
that.
social media training from you, Taylor.
Oh, you don't need it from me. You guys got it all taken care of. But okay, last thing. What would you want Drew to know about dating and relationships? What are you hoping to make sure that she knows? I think in that Johnny Boy episode, one thing he always told Alex and I, make sure you are established on your own before you get married. Now, we've talked about it. He was like, take that with a grain of salt. You're still evolving as a person.
Yeah.
But that was just something he was always telling us.
What would we tell Drew?
Yeah. Like, what do you want her to know about being in relationships or dating or who she ends up with? Or
I was thinking about this. I haven't figured out how to say it right, but there's a fine balance between being dependent and like integrating your life with your spouse. For sure, it looks different than like if you're dating someone, but fine balance between dependence and like independence, if you know what I mean. I think like preserving, knowing that you'll be okay to whatever extent, like whether you break up or whether you have to, sell the house or whatever circumstance happens, like you can deal with that. I think that's what I hope to instill in her, that she can handle her own.
Yeah. Like owning her own individuality.
Yeah, but that's not, again, not to like glorify independence, because that's not what I'm aiming at, but it's just like, you have to, again, as we were talking about dating, it's like, you have to know what you're about, and you have to have your own purpose that's, I think, independent from what your relationship had. Like, it's almost a second parallel thing, if that makes sense.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, part of what you're saying is what I would tell her as well, which is I think she needs to learn, and what I would tell her from a very young age and tell her all the way through dating is no person is going to fulfill your life. Yeah. Like, a lot of people seek a spouse because they feel like something's missing and they feel like there's a hole or a piece that's just not there. A spouse isn't going to fill that. And if you're looking for someone to make you happy, and if you're looking for someone to complete you, it will never work out. And I think it's kind of like your dad was saying, is you have to establish you, and you have to be perfectly happy with who you are as a person. And you have to have that independence to survive on your own. And then when you find someone that you can live with, and you're both equally as content with the people you are, then it makes for a beautiful relationship, because you aren't seeking something from each other. You're just kind of celebrating each other instead.
Yeah. And it's no pressure almost.
Yeah. So I feel like if if you're single and you're trying to fill something, you'll always be looking for that.
Yeah, that's true. Because like you said, it's if you don't come up front with the person and say, hey, this is who I am,
Yeah.
all of me, ups and downs, then it's like eventually that's going to come out. It has to. I mean, you learn more about each other, of course, but it's like that first initial, I guess, self-identity. I don't know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But you get it.
Yes.
We get it.
Not to say that you don't change though, right? Like the goal is not to go into a relationship and be the same person you are now 5 years from now. It's like your style will change, but understanding that, hey, this is who I am, like my core values, and this is, I like to wear flannel shirts and dye my hair purple. It's like that should not be the first thing you're looking to preserve in a relationship. Like there's things anyway. So yeah.
Are you trying to say more like about growth? Like, hey, you're going to grow from this person, but like, at least you have this solid foundation.
Yeah. I think I'm trying to say, like, some people go into a relationship and be like, this is who I am. You better just accept me. Like, I think the purpose of a marriage to some extent is to change for the better each other. Right. And like having that realization, but knowing what's good to change and what's not good to change. So yeah, the core values should not necessarily change, but what you like to eat or your diet, like probably would not be something that you should hold on to too tightly. I'm done. I'm being too philosophical.
No, drop the mic. Well, thank you guys so much.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Fun. Hey, are you loving this show? Well, I'd love to hear from you. Head on over to your podcast app, scroll down to where it says ratings and reviews, and I'd love to hear your thoughts with a rating and review. Your words might just be what the next person needs to tune in and turn their purpose into passion.